Hey, I'm really excited to be sitting down here with Nussaibah Younis, who is the author of Fundamentally. I think I read this at the end of last year, and I just loved it so much. So I'm really excited to get to chat with you, Nussaibah. I guess for everybody who's watching, maybe introduce Fundamentally like in your own kind of words.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Ross. Fundamentally is about a heartbroken academic called Nadia who leaves London and accepts a job with the UN in Baghdad. Her job is to de-radicalize ISIS brides, and this is a role for which she is entirely unprepared. When she meets a young ISIS bride called Sarah, who joined ISIS at just 15, she develops an intense connection with her and realizes how easily she could have ended up in Sarah's place. And she then makes a series of very questionable decisions.
Yeah, I think one of my like favorite things about the book was that dynamic between Nadia and Sarah. It just like it really fizzled on the page, and I felt like they had their ups, they had their downs. How did you find writing that relationship
Yeah.
between them? Because that must have been
It
tough.
was so much fun to write because I feel I feel like it's so relatable as well. If you imagine yourself at 15 meeting yourself as you are today as an adult and imagine what that conversation would be like, I think it's just immediately funny. Your 15-year-old self. I don't know if this is true in everyone's case, but when I was 15, I definitely thought I knew all of the
Oh
answers.
yeah,
Had quite a like black and white worldview. Was maybe a little bit strident,
yeah,
had
you were
very
always
strong
right. Oh,
opinions. So right.
yeah,
Yeah, really thought I'd had the world sussed out and just didn't understand why adults were so lame and weak and hypocritical and didn't do anything to help people.
yeah,
Um, and so imagining Sarah as a sort of 15-year-old version of me and then Nadia as sort of a 30-something-year-old version of me, how would they interact? And I imagine that kind of older aid worker being quite condescending and patronizing and being sort of uh, overly empathetic. Oh dear, you poor girl, you've been radicalized.
yeah,
I
yeah,
feel so sorry for you. And Sarah really bites back.
yeah.
She's not a straightforward victim, and she's also not a straightforwardly bad actor either. She's just her own person with her own agency and complexity, and she has that amazing way that teenagers have of really like slicing to the core of your
Mm.
personal insecurities. So she's great
I
at
was scared of her. I was like terrified.
yeah. But you know how it is that when you are, you know how you when you sort of end up stuck with a bunch of teenagers and it's terrifying
Yes, yes, yes.
because
Worst
you're so
nightmare.
uncool and you don't know what the right things to say are, and
Yeah,
and they're so good at taking the absolute piss out of you and somehow manage to see right to the core of what you're scared of or what
yeah.
you're embarrassed about. And so Sarah and Nadia, the two main characters, just have this hilarious banterous energy, but as part of those conversations are talking about things like, they're talking about religion and they're talking about their families, they're talking about
Mm.
the role of women in society, they're talking about the role of the UN, of foreign aid, of intervention. They're talking about some of the like biggest and thorniest and most complicated issues of our time, but they're just doing it in a way that's really funny, and they're doing it as banter and as jokes and as sort of back and forth insults, which I think is surely the best way to discuss those
Yeah.
serious
Of
issues.
course, of course. I think that does. I think that comes across really well in the book. That's one thing I found. It was like, it's such a complex, like nuanced subject that you're writing about, but you kind of you walk that line of balance with humor like really well. Like, did that come naturally to you? Did you feel like you had to work on the kind of balance because it's really like a fine line, I would say, but you do it so well.
Oh my God, I have to say, I had many sleepless nights over getting the tone right. I was like, I have just made quite an obscene sex joke, and
Yeah,
then I'm immediately talking about
terrorism.
ISIS enslaving people.
Yeah, yeah,
Can I pull this off? So there was a lot of like hand wringing. I definitely knew from the moment I sat down to write this book that I wanted it to be funny.
yeah. Hmm.
I just love reading funny books. I'm always looking for a funny book to read. But I also love reading books that are super entertaining, but that I sort of learn something from as well. You know,
Yeah,
that aren't just totally without substance. I do love learning something new about the world. But if you can learn it through satire and through a joke and through a funny story and an entertaining plot, then all the better. Then why not? It's, I always wanted it to be a page turner.
yeah,
And I was really inspired by, I learned a lot about how the civil service works from watching In the Thick of It, or like how institutions like the BBC work by watching shows like W1A, or
yeah. Right.
even older shows like sort of Yesminster. I love that sort of tradition of British satire of our institutions, and I haven't seen it done for the UN. And
Okay.
I felt like the UN was so ripe for satire.
Yeah,
And yeah, so I thought it was such an interesting way to give people a bit of a peek behind the curtain as to what one of these big, serious, rarefied institutions looks like,
hmm,
but in a way that's just hilarious.
yeah,
Because honestly, incompetence and sort of mad bureaucracy are often funny in their madness, you know.
yeah. No, I think yeah, that's another thing that was like my favorite part of the novel. You did that so well, and it was just like the whole way through, you're learning so much, but at the same time, Nadia is like horny for like half of the people she meets. You know what I mean?
She's
So
so
it's like
horny.
amazing. I just love it. I love it. And you
But that's
obviously,
the thing is like you might have a job, working in peace building in the Middle East, but that
yeah,
doesn't mean that you and your colleagues are not also normal people
yeah, yeah.
who
The
are
same
also
thing.
like maybe hot,
Yeah, yeah,
maybe hot for other people, people you still like you're still humans who like have a competition with each other, who have a nemesis and who are having relationships and
yeah,
all that stuff of human life still goes on. I thought it was important to show that as part of the whole of that experience.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, so I wonder, what did you find like the hardest part about writing the book? Like, how long did you actually work on fundamentally? So how kind of
I
long
wrote, yeah.
right up till now?
I wrote it I wrote it in a year and I took some time off work to do
Wow.
it. So I wrote it pretty solidly in a
Yeah,
year. I had a real energy behind it. I'd set myself a completely arbitrary deadline.
yeah,
It's like it must be finished, but I think writing can sort of go on for your whole life unless you
yeah,
set arbitrary deadlines.
yeah, yeah,
Um, but yeah, I think the hardest thing was probably letting go. And my editor in the end had to just take it off me. I
yeah,
was like, it could be better.
yeah,
But wait, do you think that sentence is a bit clunky? I don't, should we change the ending?
yeah. It's like
She
that
was like,
15-year-old in yourself already.
it's fine.
Or...
I think, yeah, it's hard, isn't it? Because writing, you can all, it can always be better. And I'm a perfectionist. And, at some point, someone else has to just like literally tear it from your hands.
yeah, like
And you see, now I'm writing the pilot episode for hopefully what will become fundamentally the TV show.
oh,
And
amazing.
so I'm actually looking at the story again, kind of with fresh eyes,
Okay,
and being like, oh no,
you're like,
I
I
should
could have
have
done
done it
that.
like this. I should have added this because with TV, you have a lot, there's an opportunity to add lots more stuff in.
Yeah,
You can do a lot in an episode. And because it's a TV show, not a film, there's a lot of episodes to play with. So I'm suddenly like creating new plot and new scenes and So I think the hardest thing is honestly just like knowing when to stop and be like, okay, this is enough.
yeah. I feel like, to be fair, that must be like such a common thing for most writers anyway. It's
Yeah.
like you never know when the end is, you know. And I
Yeah.
guess with the TV show, that's really exciting, by the way. There's
Thank you.
two different mediums as well, right? So you can kind of play around and have a bit more fun with the screenplay. So that's exciting.
Thank you.
Another thing I really liked about the book was I'm a sucker for like a mother-child
Oh,
relationship,
yeah.
right? And it was like a really complicated one that I feel like definitely impacted in Nadia in like so many different ways. And I kind of like going into the book. Did you always know that that was going to be like a big part of the book for Nadia's character?
I was interested in exploring how Nadia as the aid worker and Sarah as the ISIS brides had actually had similar sort of foundational traumas that had led them onto these problematic journeys that, though they're so different and almost opposite journeys, they actually stem from a sort of foundational disconnection with their parents and from their homes. And I thought that was important because I wanted to show that Sarah sort of signing up to join ISIS at 15, was partly about her being unable to connect with her family. And similarly, Nadia's like sexual adventurousness and willing to throw herself into not super healthy relationships, and her willingness to give up a normal life in London to do this mad job in Baghdad is similarly stemmed from her complicated and unresolved relationship with her mother. And so part of the book is about showing how these key emotional challenges that remain unresolved can fuel unhealthy behaviors that can manifest in different ways,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, because, and we all have mummy problems. And we're all doing various mad
yeah.
things to cope with that.
We're all just
So,
trying our best.
yeah, so it was just partly about really humanizing the characters in the book by showing where they've come from and what a journey might look like towards their reconnection.
Hmm.
Because I think so often we can get distracted by ideology. We could say Nadia's embraced an ideology of like sexual freedom,
Yeah,
and that Sarah's embraced an ideology of like fundamentalist Islam. But actually, they're both just trying to numb emotional pain.
yeah. Literally, they're just trying to deal with it.
They're just trying to deal with their shit,
Yeah.
and like it's actually not fancier than that.
Okay, right. Yeah.
Whatever language they might use to dress it up, they both just wish their mothers loved them better.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love that. I love that when you boil it down to that. It's just like
Yeah.
so human, right? It just feels so human. Oh, that's great. Um, so fundamentally, it's coming out at the start of this year, but obviously for the rest of the year, we've got so many amazing books coming out. Are you particularly excited for any?
Oh my God, there's so many great books coming out this year. My gorgeous, gorgeous friend Lucy Rose, I
Yeah.
think her book's coming out next week.
Yeah.
It's called The Lamb. The Lamb, well, if you like mothers and daughters, The Lamb is just a beautiful literary book. It's a folk tale about mother and daughter cannibals, but it's a very beautiful allegory for very traumatic relationships.
Yeah.
And it's told through the perspective of this very innocent, beautiful girl, Margot. And it's completely heartbreaking and had me sobbing. So,
Okay. Yeah, I've got that like next on my shelf. I'm so
oh,
excited to read that.
yeah, that's a stunner and it's
Yeah.
coming out really
Yeah,
soon.
really soon.
Um, I have been sent a proof of a book called Bittersweet by Hattie Williams, who
Okay.
is amazing.
That one.
She's a wonder. I love her to bits, and I'm really excited to get into her book. And I've also just been sent a proof of Sarah Harmon's book, All the Other Mothers Hate Me, which sounds so fun.
It does look so fun. Yeah, I'm excited for that too.
Yeah, love a criminal mother. So
Mhm. Mhm.
I think those are at the top of my shelf at the moment.
Yeah, I was at a thing and she was introducing it and it kind of gave me like Motherland vibes. So
I
like
love
I'm ready for that.
Motherland.
You know, I'm ready for that.
I'm so ready for the spin-off of
Spin-off.
Motherland.
I know, Amanda Land. Oh,
Joanna Lumley's still going to be in it. Fucking great.
oh, amazing,
Oh
amazing.
yes.
Great. Well, it was lovely to talk to you. I suppose my last kind of question is, what are you most excited for about fundamentally being published?
I just hope that people really enjoy it. I love that feeling. I love making people laugh in inappropriate places. So I really hope that there are people on the tube who are
I
just
was laughing
unable.
in like inappropriate place. It was like
You were just
embarrassing.
like,
Except for the fact that I was enjoying it so much, so I didn't care. But I was laughing everywhere. It was crazy. It was crazy.
yeah. And I love that thing also when you're like laughing out loud at a book and your partner comes in and they're like, what? What? Tell me. And you're like, no,
You
you've
wouldn't
just
get
got
it.
to
You
read
wouldn't
it.
get
You're
it.
going to get it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I'd love an involuntary laugh out loud. And yeah, I'd love people to just maybe understand the world of international aid and maybe a little bit about the sort of ISIS brides issue with just a bit more humanity and empathy. Um, yeah, that would be brilliant.
I have like no doubt about that. I feel like you're gonna get many, many laughs.
Thanks so much, Ross. Thanks so
Yeah,
much for your support. You've been
very
amazing. I
so
really
much
appreciate
fun
it.
to me as
Woohoo!
well. This week, I think this video will come out this week, so
Awesome.
future, yeah. All right,
Thank
thanks so
you.
much, Deva.
Okay, have a good one.